Hey guys, it's Zach. So, Yasuo's been out for 12 years, I think, and in those 12 years, he's been one of the most popular champions in League of Legends history. Maybe the most popular. I don't actually know how that works. I know there's a couple other characters that are up there, like Lee Sin and Ezreal, but the point is, Yasuo, I think, currently still has over a 25% presence, despite there being 170 champions in the game. Um, there are one tricks of him all over in every rank of skill, even at the very, very top of Challenger. Um, People play him in fives if he is given a good like synergistic teammate, right? If Diana's really good, he's played a lot. But he feels awful to lose to very often, and I've been guilty of this. I really dislike playing against Yasuo and have complained about it a lot. But I objectively don't think Yasuo's design is broken, as much as people who have talked to me for years may be surprised to hear me say that. I actually think that Yasuo's design is good, and I think there are a lot of other problems that contribute to the character's brokenness. So today I want to talk about why Yasuo is actually fair from a design standpoint. I want to talk about the times he's been broken, like what those things meant, and then I want to talk about how you can use Yasuo's design to change the way that you think about playing against him. So hopefully, if you do lose to him a lot, uh, maybe it becomes less frustrating even when you do, or maybe you're able to find some wins against him by thinking about the way he plays a little differently. So historically, Yasuo has been a couple different types of character. In terms of he's been like a full crit carry, he's been this kind of like bruiser, and then he's been in this in-between diver state, which is kind of where he is now. You'll often build crit items, but especially when the Bork Stridebreaker build was good, Yasuo would fill less of a hyper carry role or whatever. Yasuo also isn't a hyper carry. He does not go into 5 items as effectively as a lot of other characters do, and I don't know if the win rates back that up, but I would be surprised if Yasuo's win rate sat very high past 4 items compared to champions who are traditionally incredibly powerful at 4 or 5 items. A big part of that is because Yasuo's engage range is actually limited, and this is the first thing I want to talk about. So, Yasuo's engage range is limited. Now, it's not just limited in terms of, oh, he can only go in off of minions or off of abilities, right? He can only go in if he hits his NATO or if a teammate hits a knockup. Within those constraints, his engage range is limited, specifically in lane. So Yasuo can, in theory, do a very specific, very unfair trade pattern. He can, at max range, so from just barely next to you slash in front of his range creeps, E into a minion, step back a little bit, E into a second melee minion right next to the first one, goes forward with both dashes, puts him right next to the ranged creeps, E's through a third ranged minion, and his Q cooldown is, or his E cooldown is what, half a second at level 1. So that means that in about 2 seconds, animation time plus cooldown of the ability, Yasuo has dashed an entire, like, 1800 units forward. Be a little less than that because you can't be moving forward the whole time or you're going to be out of position for the minions. But Yasuo can cover an absurd amount of distance in a very quick period of time. He has a couple things that happen automatically when he does that, and they make him far more fair for mages to play against. First is that it is predictable, and now that sounds silly because, like, it doesn't matter if it's predictable if it's really good. But in League of Legends, predictable is everything. If you know that that is Yasuo's goal, you can do a lot of things to slow down his ability to be effective with it, right? So when Yasuo dashes into minions like that, he has to use one of his 2 defensive tools. He's got his parry, he's the dash parry strike character, so he can wind wall something, or he can abuse his passive shield. Ideally, obviously, a Yasuo player would want to passive shield anything that wasn't a crowd control. So you get his shield, and in return, he gets a little closer when he does his first dash. Then he has to dash a second time, at which point you can start walking backwards. You're going to be behind your melee creeps. If Yasuo wants to continue dashing forward, he's going to be dashing into your mage creeps, which puts him in a place where he takes minion poke. So he dashes in, and auto Qs you, and then E's away. You have taken about 110 damage. You've probably hit an auto attack to pop his shield. You have the ability to position an ability behind him, right, to try to catch him when he dashes away, or to try to hit a CC around or through his wind wall. If your character can ignore wind wall, you can hit a CC there. You can even just do damage to him. And he has dashed away. So this has done a couple things besides just trade his health bar. First, he cannot do that again this wave because he has to use Wind Wall to get these effective trades on your backline characters most of the time. Now, does that mean that he loses prio? No, because he has lethal tempo, he can get his passive shield back up, and his damage is just higher than yours, so if you also burn a cooldown, he's going to win the next trade. But it is a weakness, right? The second one is that to do that, he has to target you with an attack, with a Q, with an E. Whatever he's doing is going to take minion aggro. And he's got to E through minions. He's going to Q you, which either means he's extending past his own minions and yours to trade, or that he is queuing the minions. So that does another important thing, which is pushes the wave. It means that Yasuo naturally has to play pushed farther up in the lane. That obviously is a very clear punish. You can punish him by ganking him, right? So if you're not laning against the Yasuo, you are able to very easily capitalize on Yasuo's aggressive trade patterns. And this is like 3 separate ways that he opens himself up while taking these trades. In return, when done properly, these trades are almost unbeatable by most mid laners. Yasuo doesn't have any resources besides cooldowns and health. He doesn't have a mana bar or anything like that, and he doesn't have like some stack he even needs to get. Just tornado stack, but in terms of like, there's no smolder stack, no Vigor, no Nasus, right? He's not managing a resource besides everything based to the champion. And in return, like, there are so many openings that his abilities give you. Closing those openings is the job of the Yasuo player, and finding them is the job of everyone playing against him. Now, Yasuo has the second thing that I think makes him fair, which is that he actually is surprisingly non-matchup dependent. Currently, and for most of his last 4 to 5 years, what Yasuo has been is he's like a theoretical lane bully that can do a lot of really unfair things, and like it doesn't get punished for them properly. He can outtrade you. He can typically kill you from a very high amount of HP if you're positioned a little too far forward in lane, thanks to whatever version of Lethal Tempo or Conquer he's been playing. And he survives poke thanks to a combination of his passive and bone plating or second wind. He survives burst thanks to his W, and often, if he's not pushed too far forward, he can outplay ganks. Now, this is it, right? Every single one of those things comes with a conditional. So it's very hard to call a champion blatantly unfair when everything they do is conditional, right? Almost nothing Yasuo does involves him just doing it. Everything he does is conditional. His poke requires him to be in melee range, but he's a mid laner. His poke requires him to build his tornado, which pushes the wave and allows someone else to poke him. His ease in force him to take minion aggro during a trade. His wind wall has an incredibly long cooldown and doesn't work on some characters. So there's a lot of opportunity cost there. And then the final thing, this is the most obvious one, and this is the one that everybody kind of knows, but Yasuo is vulnerable to champions that can ignore wind wall. And that sounds like a, oh my god, look at this is just a counterpick issue. Why are you saying counterpicks don't matter with Yasuo when this is all that this is? But it just changes the matchup dynamic, right? If Yasuo doesn't have to windwall the character, he can windwall minions. And in the first 3 to 5 levels, windwalling 3 mage creeps, windwalls, I want to say it's 21 DPS per mage creep. Maybe even more. Before armor and MR. 21 DPS times 3 is equivalent to a character's auto attack DPS at level 1. But the character doesn't have to stop to do it because the minions are doing it for them. That's an insane amount of damage. That's way too much damage. Yasuo can use all of his abilities all the time. It's just the way that he uses them that change, right? If he needs to escape, his E is a way out. If he can't escape, his E is a way to juke. If he's trying to burst, early game he has to stack it, but his E is a way to burst. If he's trying to CC, he has to use his whole kit to enable his Q3 without getting poked out, but then he can Q3 without getting poked out. The only time that Yasuo can do something unfair is following up on his team, which is also conditional, right? Then you're playing around his teammates' knockups because you have to say, all right, because they've picked this character, this Darius pull has a Yasuo attached to it. Well, that's terrifying, but it also means that you're just playing around Darius' pull. If you're not playing around Darius's pull, you're probably dying to him anyway, right? So everything Yasuo does is conditional, and all of the individual parts of his kit become conditional when you examine them and they change what kind of conditional, what kind of way you exploit them based on the character you're playing, right? If you can ignore his wind wall, he's going to use wind wall differently, maybe even take more aggressive trades in your minion wave because he doesn't care about the mage creeps. If you can poke him out, he's going to trade really aggressively into you. If you can't poke him out, but you definitely beat him in short trades, he'll play really safe and try to queue minions. If Yasuo does anything aggressive, whether he's ahead or behind, he pushes the wave, which opens him up to ganks. He doesn't have a guaranteed escape. He doesn't have a guaranteed anything. And now I want to talk about some of the reasons that Yasuo feels broken, because the first thing is he doesn't have a guaranteed anything, so when you die to him, it feels like shit. He didn't hit his NATO. He didn't hit his knockup. He didn't ult me. He didn't even stack his E. He just E'd in and autoed me 5 times, and I just fucking died. And I couldn't do enough damage to him because he just had more health because of his passive. Something else happened. And something else probably happened a number of times, right? This is the League of Legends thing. This is something I talk about in all my videos. Yasuo had to do something else before he could do that. And you made a mistake to allow him to do that. There is a reason that in pro play, you have never watched a Yasuo miss every skill shot, miss everything, and solo a laner at level 4 or 5, right? It is not something that you should be allowed to do. But Yasuo can always, theoretically, he can just do it, right? What's stopping him is, like, the fact that just doing that isn't enough damage, even with his passive and his Q, if he hits a couple of his other blades. It's still less damage and ignorance of other mechanics than champions need to walk up and auto you to death for free, like Garen, right? Yasuo just doesn't have a 2 to 5 second damage reduction percentage thing that gives tenacity and CC immunity. He doesn't have a button that lets him DPS without stopping his character from moving for 3 seconds. Like, what he has is steroids built into basic attacks, which is powerful, but so does every ADC. ADCs don't kill you from full HP by just clicking you, and neither does Yasuo. If they do that, you have misplayed. You have set up their champion, right? So that's the first reason Yasuo often feels broken, is because when you die to him, you are making mistakes, and you're probably subconsciously feeling those mistakes. The second thing is that Yasuo abuses other game mistakes really well. I think right now, Yasuo is very strong. I might consider him broken. I don't know if I'd consider him broken, but I think Yasuo is very, very strong under a certain level of play. And the reason I think that is because Dorn Shield and Second Wind are disgusting. This is a hill I will die on. I have no idea how accurate it is from, like, a high-level standpoint, but in terms of the game being examined from an Iron to Diamond Low Master skill, like, gameplay level, Second Wind and Dorn Shield are disgusting. They're absurd. To a lesser degree, this applies to Teleport and some other things in the game as well, but these two specific parts of the game make it so that if you are a champion that can use those effectively, you can completely ignore a large portion of poke and interactiveness in the early portions of the game. That feels like shit, but it's not Yasuo doing it. Yasuo has a passive that happens to interact well with it. What about crit items? When they're broken, Yasuo's God, and he typically has to be local nerfed after. Well, again, that's Yasuo, but if the crit items weren't broken in the first place, Yasuo wouldn't have been more broken. It's multiplicative, right? Yasuo's passive is scaling those crit items, but if those crit items are at a ±0, right, if they're equally effective, Yasuo is still equally effective. He shoots farther up than most other characters do, and so as a result he goes farther down when things are bad, but he doesn't actually break the thing. A fair thing doesn't often become unfair because of Yasuo's kit. It just becomes more unfair. That's also another reason that I think Yasuo can feel broken, is because when something feels more unfair, dying to it feels so much worse. That, like, bar of how unfair something has to be to go from feeling bad to awful in League of Legends is really low. Taking a little too much damage from something is just, it's frustrating. It's really frustrating. And so Yasuo breaks aspects of the game when they are already broken. But he is never the originator of the problem, unless the ways that the items are broken only favors melee crit carries. At which point, even Tryndamere, Gangplank, Yasuo and Yone are probably the biggest, like, indicators of this, because there aren't really other good melee crit carries. But that's not a niche they designed for, at all, period. They do adjust Yasuo and Yone, but they do not design items for Yasuo and Yone only. Yuntal Wild Arrows is maybe the closest thing we've ever seen, but it's amazing on Yasuo and Yone, but it's amazing on, like, 20 other champions or something, right? Like, the item's really good. There's no issue with Yuntal Wild Arrows being good on Yasuo. That's entirely expected, and it's within the design space of items in other parts of the game. So he doesn't break things. And that's it. I think that's all you need to be a well-designed character in League of Legends, is to not have things that are unique design indicators of issue pop up in other portions of the game. If Yasuo cannot, by nature, make the game more unhealthy, then he is, by nature, not broken. If he has lots of counterplay, which is built into his kit, he is, by nature, not broken. It is when the confluence of these things becomes powerful, when the confluence of Yasuo's runes, items, and his state in the game become good, that Yasuo is frustrating and broken and needs something. But I think Yasuo is a better indicator of a set of non-Yasuo specific things that need to be changed, because he makes them feel obvious, right? And yeah, designers need to look at numbers more than feel, but if you auto-attack someone in a lane as a mage, you auto them twice and they heal from it because they take 38 damage from both auto-attacks and then heal 73 from second wind and Dorn Shield. I don't know, I feel like I'm gonna break something. I hate that. That's awful. Right? Like, so Yasuo isn't broken. Okay, then why do I keep losing to him? Well, you keep losing to him because you're making mistakes, but you don't know what those mistakes are. Because the Yasuo player is constantly focused on enabling Yasuo and disabling your character. And yeah, that often comes at the expense of everything else. There's a reason that Yasuo players are constantly joked about for going 0-10, that they have no eyes, no brain, they just drool over Yasuo. Well, you kind of do, right? Especially at lower ranks, like, Yasuo is that taxing, because you are constantly forced to ask a lot of questions, make a lot of decisions based on opportunity cost. Essentially, nobody in low ranks can play Yasuo to any level of effectiveness that makes him worth picking. Not because Yasuo is so hard that nobody in silver can pick up a mouse and play him correctly, but because if you are in silver, doing that removes your ability to focus on the parts of the game that you're probably already struggling with more, right? Your macro, can I take this fight? What do the other members of my team want to do, and how do I move to enable that, right? These things are what you need to work on. And so if you're the opponent, all you need to do is be willing to let Yasuo not play his game, or make Yasuo play less of his game, or just not play Yasuo's game with him. And sometimes that means giving resources. If the Yasuo one trick in your silver game is destroying you in lane, you have to be ready to accept that. It sucks. His champ is really good at these micro fights, right? In theory, he has every tool to outplay you. He's probably also played the matchup more than you've played it, and he's probably played it better because he only plays that champion and he's got a lot of practice. In return, there are things he cannot do because he is forced to spend the entire game trying to play Yasuo, right? And I do not care what people say about champions being easy or the game being easy mechanically or whatever. League of Legends has a high mental processing requirement. There are too many things to focus on to be good at all of them at the same time. If you are playing a mechanically difficult champion, the rest of the game becomes harder. Yasuo is a great example of this, one of the best. You can punish that by simply not giving him the kills. You can punish that by not forcing into him, right? You can punish that by going somewhere else on the map, or by bringing multiple people to him. You can punish that by ganking him if you are not the Yasuo player, or not laning against the Yasuo player, right? And this sounds very esoteric and like, oh, this doesn't help me beat Yasuo. Let me give you a very specific example. Yasuo is level 3. Your wave has pushed into him because you are ranged, he is melee. You have a way to get him off. Maybe you're playing Syndra and you can QE him, right? And so at level 1, 2, he doesn't have his wind wall. So you push the wave in, you bounce the wave because you don't want the jungler to hit you on wave 3, 4, 5. He hits level 3 off the third wave. Wave is bouncing to you, and you know he hits level 3 off the third wave. Just run backwards for 3 minions until your QE is back up. Run all the way backwards, outside of a range where he could E through a minion and Q or E you. That's it. You just have to leave. And yes, that probably means he's going to win a minion. If that happens, you have to go through and think, should I have pushed, right? Because those macro decisions that you're making against Yasuo need to be made understanding the results of them. If you are pushing because you want to pressure Yasuo level 1, 2, you have to have a game plan on how to stop him from all-inning you level 3. What if Yasuo is level 6? He's already level 6, wave is in the middle of the lane, And you are, again, you're playing Syndra. You have QE to get him off you. You have a pretty reasonable amount of damage, but you're both full HP. He's going to win that trade. So what do? Well, you have two very equal options. You can walk all the way back and try to float at XP range, or you can walk up and force him to go in on you by auto-attacking the wave. If you auto-attack the wave, it's going to push to him. But he's Yasuo. Remember, he's going to push the wave by trading. He has to E minions. His Q is AoE. He is going to take minion poke, and he can choose to either windwall you or the minions. His windwall has a long cooldown, much longer than any of your cooldowns, even your E, right? So unless you get your ult windwalled, he's losing when he uses windwall if nothing else happens. So try to force him to do something. Walk up, hit a minion, see where he moves. If when you try to walk up, he's already dashing in, throw a Q right on top of him and just step back. Great, you got his shield. Now 5 seconds later, you can walk up, his shield won't be back up, and he'll have to windwall something. Great. Now you've got his windwall. His shield's coming back up. Do it again. Do this again and again. If Yasuo's tools are working against you, that doesn't mean you're losing. That means he's playing his character correctly as well. If you don't feel like you can do anything, you are probably still missing something. You're positioning too close to your minions. You should be far to one side of the lane so that he can't E to a minion and then to you. Or you should be using your cooldowns more aggressively, maybe even before the minions crash. This is one that I think most people don't do against Yasuo for some reason, and it can be really useful. If you have a very good wave clear champion, walk up. If he walks all the way back to his turret, walk up and hit his minions, his melee minions, as they come, right? You can clear a lot of minions, get your, zoning ability down, get your Syndra spheres down or whatever, right? Get your Ori ball in a better position, because he can't answer you while the minions are not pushed into him. He can't answer you while the minions aren't giving him mobility. There are tons of micro interactions available because of Yasuo's unique style of gameplay. You just have to be ready to answer them, and you have to not get ego checked by the Yasuo player who's walking up and constantly saying, I'm better than you. Last thing, most important thing, the Yasuo player is going to constantly walk up and say, I'm better than you. He is going to try to use everything in his kit. How well he uses it then depends. And sometimes a silver player will individually use every Yasuo tool correctly. They will wait on their wind wall. They will block the correct thing. They will E through the correct minions. They will hit you with every Q, and it will feel unfair. Something else went wrong in that play. He shouldn't have been on that minion wave. You should have had more gold, and this sounds silly, but you should have had more gold. You should have played the early game better so that his mid game wasn't oppressive versus you. Yeah, that feels terrible to say, because then the mistake isn't actually a mistake. It's just like, well, I die. Well, you die because of mistakes 3 minutes ago or 10 minutes ago. League's a strategy game. It's a resource game. It's like a fighting game in the same way that Tetris is a puzzle game. That's not really how the games work. So the next time you fight Yasuo, go look at the VOD. Spot the moment that you die and step back. 10 seconds back. Why do I want to do this, right? Well, I want to do this because I'm behind. Well, why am I behind? Because of this last trade. Well, why did this last trade happen? Because I wanted a minion, and Yasuo had all his cooldowns, and I used a cooldown on the minion. Boom, there you go. Now you understand something about the game that you didn't a moment ago. Or you understand something about that game, right? Food for thought. I think that Yasuo is very interesting. I do also hate this character. And, yeah, on my Zed video, I saw someone commented something about Zed propaganda. Yeah, I play a lot of Zed. So I want to be clear. I hate Yasuo. I really dislike playing against this character. I ban him all the time. I complain about him. But I think he's fair. Thanks for coming to my TED Talk. That's it. See ya.